All right. Good evening to all distinguished guests of Mother Earth and you. Thank you to the club for the privilege to be able to share on this platform. So as earlier, I have given a brief introduction of myself. So today, what I'm going to really talk about is what I am witnessing personally at work. So just like similarly like Facebook, we are, I think all companies are also trying to do their bit to be in alignment with the Singapore Green Plan. So working in an electricity retail company, I've seen also how this industry is transforming itself over the past few years to support this effort in sustainability. So my topic of the day would then be electrification. What alternatives do we have? So has anyone participated in dining in the dark or dialogue in the dark? I did. Through it, I truly appreciated Thomas Edison's light bulb invention and also the energy source behind it. And without electricity, our quality of life would be very different today. But before we dive in deeper into it, can you make a guess how much electricity does an average person use in a lifetime?
Well, that's a tough one. I don't know.
Anyone want to make a wild guess?
How do you measure electricity?
Kilowatt. So it's in your tariff, right? You are being charged like 25 cents per megawatt. So that will translate into kilowatt hours as well. So maybe we just take this on, and it's about 1 million kilowatt hours on an average lifespan of 78 years. So this study was done in America, and that's how much electricity each person use on average. So if I apply this 1 million kilowatt hours, and this is the latest tariff published by Singapore Powers, is 25 cents per kilowatt hour. So if I take this value, it will translate to about 250,000 per lifetime you are paying for your electricity. So now we go into what electricity is then. At the press of a button, a lot of tools and gadgets begins to work. But have you really thought about what is the science behind electricity? So in this screen, electricity this is how electricity is generated. So it's generated by turbine, and most commonly used is a steam turbine. And water is heated in the boiler to produce steam, and this in turn powers the turbine. The spinning movement then will transform the mechanical energy into electricity. And electricity is generated by various power plants and solar installation that is all across the country, and this is transmitted and distributed through the national grid. So in our case, Singapore Power is our national grid, and then after that, the Singapore Powers will then distribute this electricity to end consumer like you and me. So without going into any too much detail into the technical aspect of this, that's how electricity will end up in your house. So how do we, how is the water heated up in a power plant? So the power plant is mainly fueled by nuclear, renewable sources such as the wind, water, biomass, geothermal, solar, and fossil fuel, coal, natural gas, and petroleum. In some parts of the world, they use water hydro, which harness water energy, wind farm, and even biomass. And given land scarcity, of course, these options are highly unviable in Singapore. So in Singapore, 95% of our energy needs is powered by natural gas. And other sources of energy, if you see, there's still a small percentage of other sources such as coal, petroleum. Petroleum are like mainly diesel, fuel oil, and other energy products. So we have this small percentage here is really for, I mean, just like food security, we have this small percentage of reliance on other source of energy is also for energy security. So using fossil fuel is actually an attractive mode of powering a power plant. But is this really the best and safest choice? Do we really don't have any other alternative? So let's take a look at how we are affected by the challenges of using this current energy source. So the first challenges is the limited in supply. So as many of you are aware, fossil fuel is limited and it takes millions of years to form. So likewise, it will take the same amount of time to replenish when it's depleted. And based on some estimated calculation, the amount of natural resource can last human race another 50 to 200 years. That's the maximum. And how many generations can that last? And what will happen when our resource run out? And when energy needs are met by our future generation? So these are the things that we have to keep behind our mind when we use this current source of fossil fuel. And the second reason why this current source of energy source is a big challenge is political dependency. It is often overlooked, but it is also a very important factor. If you notice, fossil fuel-rich countries are mainly in politically volatile nations in the Middle East. So besides the prices, buyers of fossil fuel are also affected by the stability in this nation. And earlier I mentioned most of Singapore natural gas is sourced from our 95% of natural gas is mainly sourced from Indonesia and Malaysia. So naturally, we have huge dependency on these countries as well. So the third and fourth points are highly related. So it's a carbon emission and emission of harmful pollutants. So I think carbon emission, all of us are very familiar. It is the byproduct of burning fossil fuel, and it produces carbon dioxide. So with the increasing demand for electricity, fossil fuel are being burned in power plant in huge quantity and also almost 24/7. So along with it, naturally, the greenhouse carbon dioxide is of the same magnitude. And this then goes into a spiral effect on global temperature, rising sea level, and other natural calamities that we are seeing more often now. And besides that, the emission of harmful pollutants, I think to date, there are still some old power plant in the world using coal as its primary energy. So the harmful effect of burning coal is often neglected. So it's like when you burn coal, it produces a lot of minor particles and mercury, and this is often responsible for respiratory illnesses. So these are really how the current energy source that will, if we continue to use it, that's how it will affect us. So it does paint a grim picture. And with our ever-increasing demand for electricity, what is our alternative to fossil fuel? So in the immediate future, it is more imperative to source energy sustainably. And this means harnessing energy from renewable sources that we will enjoy abundant supply of it. So across the globe, there are many types of alternative source of energy that country taps on, depending on whether it is geographically or physically permissible. So of course, what we are looking at is the sun, the wind, the water, even taking advantage of constant supply of waste and tapping on Mother Earth's energy from within using geothermal. So I really take heart that governments, organizations, and individuals like yourself are seeing the urgency to make this happen sooner rather than later. And as of now, although renewable technology is not economically viable for the general masses to adopt, but more than before, resources have been directed to develop this technology to maximize its performance and functionality. For example, compared to a decade ago, the cost of building a solar panel has reduced significantly. So we are going to talk about solar panel using solar energy. And if you are ready for a change, what do you need to do? What do you need to do next? Okay, so the first person that you need to talk to, the most important person, is the authorities when you are ready to install a solar panel. So Energy Market Authority, EMA, is Singapore's regulator for electricity and the gas industry. So all the important regulation and guidelines are provided by EMA. So through EMA, you can also find relevant information on regulation and licenses required by other government authorities, such as BCA for structure safety, CAS for aviation zone, SCDF for fire safety. So they will be familiar now to guide potential families who wants to install solar panel in their residence. And of course, the next step is to select a company. So in the market right now, there are more and more solar panel installers in Singapore. Each offer different packages, but besides your cost factor, it is important to ensure that the company has a valid practicing license issued by the relevant authorities, and they must be well-versed in obtaining all the relevant permits for you. So besides the important people to look for, you also need to consider the cost of installation. So earlier I mentioned there are many installers now in Singapore. So typically installation cost for a solar panel, the installation cost for a terrace house that requires maybe around 20 solar panel will cost around 10,000. For a bigger bungalow installed with maybe 80 solar panel, it will cost 40,000. So typically the setup cost, that is the upfront setup cost. And typically it will last around 20 to 25 years. So similar to car purchases, besides your initial installation cost, there's maintenance cost as well. So seller do not offer free maintenance throughout the lifespan. And maintenance and routine cleaning will usually cost around 200 to 400 per visit. And at a minimum, for a solar panel, you need to maintain it once a year to maintain its efficiency level. And last but not least, what are other considerations that we have besides the cost mentioned? It is important to remember to look at the warranties that's offered by different companies, because the content and the duration will be all may differ quite drastically. And also the cost of solar panel installation depends on factors such as the efficiency of the solar panel, the material of your roof. So it will affect the type of brackets to hold the panel, and also whether does your roof needs drilling, and if drilling is required, then waterproofing is needed. So these are additional costs as well. And besides that, the steepness of your roof is important, because the steeper the roof, it will require more man-hour to install and require more material to secure the panel. And of course, the size of your roof will dictate how many panels you require. And also the other consideration that you need to take into is how long will you stay in the house, because this is a big lump sum upfront investment. So you wouldn't want to just stay there a few years and then leave the panel behind. And once the solar panel is installed, the cost saving actually comes from your monthly electricity bill, which you would pay a retailer otherwise. And also the other advantage after when you install a solar panel, you will potentially lock in any future price increase during the lifespan of the panels. And furthermore, energy can be stored in solar battery nowadays for later use, or when there's excess capacity, discerning users can actually sell it back to the national grid, making some money out of it to cover the installation costs. So if we look across the globe, early adopters of solar energy in residential houses are countries such as Germany, Japan, Australia, and of course China, who is now the leading panel manufacturer right now. So they can be a role model for us in Singapore if any one of you seriously want to consider a solar panel on top of your roof. Yeah, so you can study how the house are built and how the panels are installed. So I think I have come to the close of this presentation, and to close it, given our geographical location, my simple wish is for Singapore to have a higher adoption rate for solar panels by government and residential. And also the other areas that we seriously need to look into now is the ability to tap on various renewable sources that is all around us. For example, can we tap energy from the sea? Can we give discarded oil a second lease of life? Can we even install solar panel on top of bus stops to be self-sufficient to light up all the advertisements at all the bus stops that we have? So the possibility is endless, but it's really for the next generation and us to explore. And I guess together, you and me, we can make educated choices to minimize the social and environmental impact on our energy consumption for our Mother Earth. So yeah, thank you for paying attention to the needs of our Mother Earth, and that's the end.
How is that?
That was wonderful. Thank you, Li Peng. So we have a quick Q&A after, and maybe we can start off immediately with Ash's segment, and then we have the Q&A and peer-to-peer evaluation afterwards.
Okay, sure, Raju. So thanks, everyone. So for my presentation, I initially had advised Raju that I'll be speaking about green buildings because that's really my comfort zone. But actually, I've changed my topic and I've decided to talk about the green economy. All right, and this is in line with our intention for this series, where we wanted to deepen our understanding about this Singapore Green Plan. And the green economy is one pillar of this green plan. All right, so today I'm going to basically share my insights, my taking of this aspect of the green plan called the green economy. And first of all, I'll just say that when Ihan introduced the green plan, I think one thing that I took away was that this green plan is actually the first time, if you watch the video that comes along with when they launched the green plan, it was the first time that there were more than one minister talking about this endeavor to make Singapore greener. In the past, it was mainly just the Ministry of Environment and Water Resources, ME&U, right? And maybe one other prime minister who will be just saying a few things. But this video had at least 4 to 6 ministers expressing their own responsibility in their own parts of this in Singapore. Okay, so to me, that's really a multi-ministry roadmap. And I think that's a significant part of the green plan. All right, and it's presented as a plan, as a roadmap. And what is also very clear is that the time for talking is done. And now is the time for action. Right, and I think Li Peng also chimed in on this, saying that in her view from industry, all companies, whether it's Facebook or her company, are now all doing their bit. Right? So this is why I think the Singapore Green Plan is significant. Number one, it's multi-ministry for once, right? And number two, it is moved past the talking and it's now made very clear action for different parties to start executing on. So today what I'm going to do is talk about that one pillar of the Green Plan, which is called the green economy. And what I would like to do is explain what is a green economy and why is making our economy green so important for Singapore, and how Singapore is planning to make that happen, right? What is our roadmap for creating a green economy? And the last thing is I wanted to just also talk about what can you and me do to support this transformation of our economy, right? So if you're ready, I'll try my best to do this, and I'm looking forward to hearing Xavier's feedback in my presentation. So what's a green economy? All right, so to understand what is a green economy, let's take a step back and let's try first understand what is a economy, right? So the economy is really a system that all of us are part of, right? And this system consists of basically either us as producers, making something, a product, a goods or service, or as a consumer using that goods and service. And in exchange for that, we exchange money, right? So this is essentially what economy is. And all of us here are part of our economy. And the goal of an economy is one thing, and that is to grow, right? So all economies have only one goal, and that is to grow, to increase wealth for the population, for the people, for the world, all right? And this growth, one of the beliefs, and I don't know if this is a story that we tell ourselves, but the belief is that growth is the solution to many of our biggest challenges, whether it's poverty, whether it's inequality. All of these problems would be mitigated or reduced if there was increased wealth and we could share it out. Okay, so that is the basis of an economy, right? And what is a green economy then? So a green economy is nothing more than all these transactions of producers making products, goods and services, and selling it to consumers to consume them, and then in return paying money. These transactions are now incentivized to balance the need of people, planet, and profit. So this is what a green economy is all about. An economic system that is trying to balance the conflicting needs of the people, the planet, and profits. And if we are successful, according to our Minister Ong Ye Kung, he says that we will then create a virtuous cycle that will bring economic growth that is ecologically sustainable. Right? So this is the goal of a green economy. So why is a green economy so important for Singapore? So first of all, a few points. Number one, the economic machine that I just described is the single most effective tool that has created positive change in our world. Nothing has done this more consistently than the economic machine, all right? And the second thing, so just by track record, the economic machine is actually our best bet, all right? Yeah, I was just going to make a comment saying that change makers actually has a very much lower track record compared to the economic machine. Okay, so all of us are change makers. We advocate advocacy, but the amount of change we really create, occasionally we do make some impact. But if you compare that against the economic machine succeeds more often, all right? So more consistent. The second point is that by making this change in our economy, we really align the climate action agenda with the bread and butter issues of people, right? We are not trying to ask them to choose over more money to spend on their children rather than to build a electric solar panel on their roof. It's not a fight between competing agendas. We are actually aligning it by making it an economic agenda. We no longer make that distinction. Means because if you are green, you earn more money and then you'll be happier and richer. That's it. So that's why the second reason is that it aligns the climate agenda with bread and butter issues, right? And the truth is that while the plight of the polar bears will motivate some of us to make that change, this will not be enough if you are struggling to just bring bread to the table by the end of the day. It means, you cannot even handle today's livelihood. Tomorrow's problem will be so distant. Right? So the second point is about how the economic and machine can align the climate agenda to bread and butter issues. Okay. And the third point I wanted to make about why is it so important is that if we don't make our economy green, the other alternative is that we must accept lower growth. All right, and that comes with a lot of consequences that we really have to put our head around to understand what that really means. Maybe for those of us who live in a developed world, a little bit less could be more, right? But for those of us who are struggling in the third world countries where this choice is actually not something that they can easily swallow, all right? It's really significant if you tell a poor villager in a certain poor country that you just have to accept it. The rest of the world have made it. You just have to live with what you have, right? That will really crush, and a lot of dissatisfaction will come out from as a result. Okay. Now, how is Singapore building this green economy? What's our plan? Okay. There are 4 main pillars, and this, I think, to do it proper justice, you should go and read their website, and it describes it in a much clearer way. But I'll just touch on the 4 pillars. The first pillar is a green finance action plan. All right, so this is the first pillar. The second pillar is carbon trading and green services hub. And the third is research and innovation. And the last is the enterprise sustainability program. All right, so 4 pillars. So the first one, the green finance action plan, really that is a very detailed roadmap on how to build in, how to make our financial systems more resilient to environmental risks. So that's systematically going into all the financial systems, whether it's insurance or whether it's loans and banks, and make sure that they factor in environmental risks into their consideration. So once they do that, their decision makings will then be more aligned to this need, which is to protect the environment. The second pillar is carbon trading and green services hub, to make Singapore a carbon trading and green services hub. So really what this is, without going into too much detail, carbon credits is a concept that's been becoming very popular, and essentially it's putting a monetary incentive to help poor countries do embark on what's they call it, green projects or carbon projects, right? So for example, a poorer country can decide that I'm going to plant trees, and as a result of that, I'm reducing carbon, and I have carbon credits to sell to the rich country who needs it, right? So it's a somewhat complex scheme. I don't claim to fully understand it, but I know that enough people in the world think that this is going to make a big difference. And Singapore has decided that this is a part of our economic strategy. We're going to build that capability to become a carbon trading and green services hub. So carbon trading and all the services around the consulting and the valuation and all that other work that needs to support that carbon trading industry. Okay. And the third pillar is this, they call it RIE, which is Research and Innovation and Enterprise Plan 2025. Okay, so keeping that simple, basically Singapore has got a long history of bringing in technology and getting Singapore to be to level up on that technology curve. At the very beginning, when they first started A-Star, or maybe even before they started A-Star, it was about maybe some manufacturing technology. And then along the way, it became that we needed life sciences, and then they brought in all the experts, and then they incubated it in Singapore, and then we had innovation that's come up from that, right? And then recently was smart technology and things like that. Now they've put in urban solution and sustainability as one of that focus areas. So systematically, Singapore has this machine that goes out and finds the best minds in this area. It gets them into Singapore, starts programs to make sure that knowledge is transferred to the locals, and then hopefully incubate new technology from here. Right. So the third pillar is this R&D emphasis. And the last one is called the Enterprise Sustainability Program. And here, not much information has been released, but the concept is that they are going to provide some kind of support to help small businesses embark on this, embrace on sustainability initiatives. So big companies like Facebook and Li Peng's company are possibly more financially strong that they can embark on these. But for the smaller SMEs, it's survival mostly, right? So the government is now putting in programs to provide that support so that smaller companies can start embarking on becoming greener themselves, right? So these are the 4 pillars. So the last point is, what can we do? You and me, right? What can we do, right? 2 points. First, remember our power. We are part of this system. So when I first thought of the green economy, I was thinking, wow, this is so complex. It's probably someone else's problem, economist's problem. And then I didn't realize that I am part of this system. You are part of this system. We are part of this economic system. And being part of the system, we have the power. We have the power in 2 ways. We are consumers, right? So we buy the goods that they make. So 2 things to remind everyone: remember your power and be ready to pay that green premium if it's necessary. Because when you pay that green premium, you encourage more businesses to go into that space, and then competition will make them stronger. Second, be watchful for greenwashing, right? So if some companies are coming in and making a long story, big story about how green they are, but actually there's nothing really different, you still have the power to choose how you spend your dollar, right? So remember that power. And also as businesses and employees. So we are now part of this economy and we are producing new services, new solutions. So we have that responsibility to equip ourselves with the knowledge and then to create that new silver bullet, this new winning product that will change Singapore's landscape, right? Don't wait for overseas product to come in and then we have to keep buying from overseas. It's for us to invent, for us to create, for us to produce. And my second point around what we can do is just a reminder for all of us that, and I quote Gandhi, right? So I'm sure everyone knows who Gandhi is, and he's got so many inspiring wisdom for men. And he was known to say this. He said, there is enough for everybody's needs, but not for everybody's greed. All right, so the economic model drives on greed, on the desire to grow, to the desire to have more. So as we embark and we so-called use this machine to get our goal of becoming a sustainable Mother Earth, just bear in mind that this machine has the potential is driven by greed, right? It's about people wanting more, right? So we just have to be mindful and be careful not to let that overrun the intention. It's just a tool. The economy is just a tool, and the goal is to make our world more sustainable. All right, thank you very much. I took 15 minutes.
Thank you, Ash, for that speech. That was great. And thank you, Li Peng, also for your wonderful and very, very informative and knowledgeable speech. We'll throw open the floor for some Q&A. We'll keep it a bit short because we have overshot a bit of time. So we'll just have a 5-minute Q&A. So over to everyone. Everyone can unmute themselves and we can just ask the speakers any questions, or we can put it on the chat as well to keep it a little bit more. Yeah. Or everyone can just unmute themselves and go ahead and shoot questions to whoever you would like to. I have a question actually from Ash, and sorry, Steve, am I taking yours? But I just I wanted to check how is one in driving growth? How are we building for? I mean, how are we building for, let's say, nature services which are unaccounted for? Is there some dialogue there? I mean, I understand carbon offsets is one thing, but is there a way to sort of build that in? And who charges for that? Is there some talk around that, or is there some tools one can one can get hold of to sort of get an idea of how one can do this?
I'm not sure personally, but I think in the economic model, there is the producers and the consumers, and that's also the government. So really, when it comes to protecting nature, planting more trees, there needs to also be some kind of regulation that steps up, right? So, yeah. But I'll leave this to the floor if anyone has any better idea. And we've got Santosh, we've got Xavier. These are way more economic experience.
If I could just chime in, yeah, I think we need to reimagine the way economics is taught in schools. So the economics that is taught in schools is based on neoclassical economics or neoliberalism philosophical school of thought. And that is not amenable if we to continue with that. So in my personal opinion, the government is still functioning on a neoclassical model, which is exactly what Ash talked about. You've got supply, demand, and then you have price. Yeah, and then you're having the market mechanism to dictate the direction of the economy. But actually, they are now leading economists. University of Cambridge and University of Oxford, there is a leading economist called Kate Raworth, who coined this new term called doughnut economics. I'm not sure if you've heard of doughnut economics. I see some heads nodding. Yeah, which is to reimagine the fundamental ideological model that the economic development growth of Singapore was built on. So there is economic development growth, which is built on an ideology or thinking, which is economics, which is neoclassical in nature. And we need to unpack and shake the foundations of economics, and introduce doughnut economics. Doughnut economics is a new model where you cannot have growth for growth's sake. There must be caps and limitations to economic growth. And so that's why the doughnut is an interior circle and an outer circle. It's like a donut, right? Inner circle and outer circle. The inner circle means we need to have strong social foundations. Yeah. So we must not have growth at the expense of low-income communities being deprived of a respectful living or livelihood. Yeah. So that must be a strong social foundation, and we cannot have people growing at the expense of other people who are left behind. And then the outer one is the ecological ceiling. Yeah. So we cannot have growth that actually traverses or transgresses the ecological ceiling. Social foundation has many dimensions, which you can look in the book or on the internet, and ecological foundations has many dimensions. And we have to meet both the social foundation and not traverse the, So it's actually adding a layer of complexity and constraint on growth. And the growth cannot, has to be, And so this is why we need to also rethink another thing that is colonial in nature. It's the idea of capitalism. The colonial masters and the Industrial Revolution brought on this ideology or thinking called capitalism that has fueled this entire devastation that we see in our world today. And we need to maybe move away from a capitalism that's extractive and exploitative in nature to a model of capitalism that is regenerative, that is conscious, and redistributive, meaning people who earn more redistribute their wealth to take care of the social foundations of those who are left behind. We need to re-engineer the entire thinking, and the government with the green economy plan is just scratching the surface and not going deep into the ideological roots of what needs to be addressed.
I think, Sansu, if I may just jump in here, I think I'm completely aligned with the need for everything that to move and change with the time. So whatever models we have, they naturally have to adapt to the current realities. So economics model, as you described it, focus on growth. And now we've reached a point where that growth is no longer sustainable because they used up all the materials. They've created such a mess that the communities are no longer able to afford to be their consumers, right? So they've reached that break point. So naturally, economies will then have to rebalance itself, find another not model, but another approach to still continue to grow, but now balancing the needs of planet, people, and profit. And I think there's enough mechanisms in the system without throwing it all out, yeah, but just tweaking it. And primarily, I feel personally that the governments must step up more, right? Because they were supposed to be the one that keeps everything in check. And for some reasons, they did not. And that's another very interesting conversation to discuss. Why is our governments not holding businesses accountable as they should have based on the design? Where did our democracy fail to give power to the people? Right. So that could be another meeting's conversation, but I think the economic model as it is, as I understand it, and has been familiar by most of the world, right? It's not completely broken in my opinion. Yeah.
Can I say something?
Sure, Celine.
Okay, I see it as like, like an onion, you slowly peel, we are at the outer edge now, and we are trying to move into the interior, the core that Santosh is talking about, the real value behind this green economy and the philosophies and all that have to change. So, but I think it's going in the right direction, right? There's just so much you can do as a start. So you got to get going, get the taste the results, and then peel the onion again and deepen it and sharpen it. I think that's the way it is, and it applies to everything, right? Everything that we
Oops, Celine, you muted.
direction. Oh, am I? Sorry. Okay, did you get the onion bit? Okay. Okay.
Yes, we got the onion bit.
Maybe we
Okay.
should, sorry, maybe we should move on to a question to Li Peng.
Oh yes, I have a question for Li Peng. Forgive me if I wasn't paying attention, but you were talking about solar panels and bungalows and house rooftops and all that. And considering we all majority of us are HDB dwellers, how would I, if I have a little flat in Toa Payoh on the second floor, how would I, benefit from
For
this solar panel thing? Or
public houses is taken care of by the government.
oh wow,
Yeah, so
we are so blessed.
currently my company is working with HDB, and not only just HDB, even JTCs. We have solar panels installed on several HDB flats and flatter factories rooftops. Yeah.
Li Peng, I got a question for solar, right? So in my work, I've sometimes heard people say that solar is not suitable for Singapore because we are very cloudy or something like that. I cannot understand why, but is that
not
basis?
the most ideal because of the cloud coverage that we have. Even though we are at the equator, it doesn't mean that we have the maximum. So it really has to really get the most efficient solar panel, like the electricity generation is really a clear sky, no buildings or no other obstruction in the way. So that's why the latest that we have is the Tengah Reservoir. Yeah, because that is like totally unblocked.
Then the other thing I was always puzzled with solar is, so while the energy is clean, the storage with batteries, there's a lot of critical views of whether that is sustainable.
Yeah, that is the manufacturing process of it, because like I just mentioned, China is actually overtaking this whole process of manufacturer. They were not in the forefront in manufacturing. But then somehow in recent years, our solar panel installation came down drastically. It's because of them. And of course, I guess in terms of manufacturing process, they are not the most, how to say, environmental conscious country. Let's put it this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then how do you handle the batteries after after 5 years? Do we have to change it every 5 years?
Typically, it's not about 5 years. The lifespan is really right now can be up to 20 years.
The batteries?
The batteries, yeah. That's how advanced they are now. If you have a chance, you can Google about the solar industry in China. They have the space, they have the ability.
Okay, well then I'm very, very shocked because batteries are chemical devices. They actually have some chemistry involved, right? For it to last 20 over years.
They really they have really advanced in their manufacturing process.
Li Peng, can you hear me?
Yes, now.
Hi, ComCheck, yeah. So seems like I'm online now. Okay, I've got a question with regard to solar panels. Is the technology for solar panels currently most up to date? As I understand that it only able to harness a very small percentage of the solar energy. Are we at the at the most ideal stage of technology, or will it evolve?
I guess if we put ourselves 10 years ago, we are at a better state in terms of efficiency and cost. That's why we have a lot of installation going on right now.
So it's a good time to go into it.
But then I would still say in terms of residential adoption rate is still very low. I mean private residents. Compared to other countries, I think the most dense solar panel adoption is in Australia. Yeah, but because they have a push factor as well, their electricity tariff by nature is much higher than us. So they had this so-called push factor to have it installed.
Great, thanks. Thank you, Li Peng. I think we're pretty much out of time, so I'm going to try and sort of end it here. And I heard your last statement there, Li Peng, where you said that the push factor or the adoption in Australia is much more. So as a takeaway for all of us, what is the one thing or maybe the two things that you could summarize or you could give to us as takeaways that could help us to push or get more, let's say, government support or whatever is needed to push for solar, for greater solar adoption in Singapore? What would you recommend to us to do that would help for this to happen, for a greater solar adoption to happen in Singapore? Could be personal, could be a push to the government, whatever you think may help us tip the balance there.
Honestly, I still love to see, because we have a lot of space that's already taken up by either buildings or any commercial use in terms of land space. So we really have a lot of bus stops in Singapore. So my dream is to fully utilize the bus stops that we have in Singapore.
And how could we make that an action? Do you recommend we lobby the transport minister? Who would be the right person to reach out to? Would it be our CCs?
I think the transport
how do we reach
minister's
out?
first consideration would be the cost of maintaining it. Imagine every bus stop they need to maintain it. Yeah.
I'm thinking of the government reserves which they managed to take out in times of COVID, and support Singapore citizens. And I'm wondering how much of a fraction of a cost that might be, to think that we are at a crisis graver than COVID. Maybe there is an opportunity to get the government to support some of these initiatives a bit better. But
I guess
yeah,
it's
thank
really
you.
cost-benefit analysis.
Yes. Cost in the short run, benefits over a very, very long term, right? Which is why we don't end up measuring them correctly, perhaps. Anyway, thank you for that. So I hope we can make some sort of collective action of that. Would be fantastic to discuss what can happen. Ash, last something from you to make the reality of the green economy come alive. What is the one thing that you would ask everyone to do here to sort of get those boxes to be ticked off faster?
So like in my speech, I was just leaving everyone with a reminder that we have power in the economy because we are either consumers or we are producers. So as consumers, you need to be willing to pay the green premium. Otherwise, there will be no incentive to produce. But still, as consumers, you still have the power to hold businesses accountable for greenwashing. Right?
Yes.
So if the product doesn't make sense or it sounds, yeah, doesn't feel right, you don't buy. Right? So I think that's the key. And then for those of us who are employees of companies who are producing, then I think it's for us to push our organizations to seize this opportunity to make greener products, because it is in our company's interest to exploit this economic opportunity. Right? So equip ourselves with knowledge, look for new designs that you can bring on. Yeah. So that's my call to action.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I'm going to just take 1 minute. It's what I wanted to share with this fabulous community here. All the narrative in the papers is about climate change. It's about 1.5 degrees. It's whatever, But I wanted to talk about what Jihan mentioned: biodiversity. The fact that we don't. That we are not valuing. We are only talking about what the government can measure, what the government thinks will benefit, what we can measure. But one of the most fabulous concepts that I came across recently was on the planetary boundaries. And there's a beautiful film on Netflix called Breaking Boundaries, which is a must watch. Climate change and 1.5 degrees is just one part of our 6 planetary boundaries. And in some of them, particularly on biodiversity, we are way into the reds, we are way into the danger zone. It's very, very compelling. The movie is called Breaking Boundaries. And it's got the voiceover. It's emceed by Richard Attenborough. So do watch it. It's on Netflix. Thanks. That's from me. Anything from you, Jihan?
Yeah, so if anyone wants to switch their household power to solar, please, you can let me know. Can share how it works. Yeah. So yeah, I think really thank you all. Thank you, Ash and Li Peng, for sharing, and Ms. Santosh. Many of you shared your personal insights, and this is really the value of community, where we throw each other questions, and we all leave with a deeper understanding and a greater commitment. So let's take this energy back to the real world and make the Singapore Green Plan a reality and even better. See you guys. Hope to see you next month.
Thank you so much. Thanks.